Welcome to Drinking Bros, presented by GhostBed.com. Whoa! Welcome to Drinking Bros.
Oh, boy.
D'Anthony, we got a special guest here today.
We do indeed.
We got Mr. Graham Allen on the show. How are you, Graham?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm coming from you guys from our new home in Texas. So it's a brisk, cool morning here in Texas. So it's
Is it really
fantastic? Yeah, no, not at all. It is the hottest that it's ever been in my life, actually.
You're kidding. So you're, for the audience at home, you're working with CRTV and The Blaze, obviously. Or did The Blaze buy CRTV?
I don't really know who bought who.
Okay.
It was a merger. So now we are Blaze TV.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, Blaze TV is out of Dallas, Texas.
Correct. Yes.
And your new studios are there in Dallas, right?
Correct. Yes. And we're about a week behind schedule, but we are here, we're filming, we're operating, and we are still building out a set. I'm sure you guys know how lovely and logistical that can be. But yes, we're here, we're in Texas. I don't know how long we have to live here before I can say that I'm from Texas. What's the time limit on that?
You know what's funny,
6
man?
months?
Dan and I were talking about this the other day. People who live in Texas, you've never met. There's not a prouder state in the country than Texas. Of like, I'm from Texas.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So if you ask someone like, "Hey, where are you from?" and they say, "Oh, I'm from North Carolina," they're like, "Oh, okay," and then you move on with your day. And if you ask someone where they're from and they're from Texas, like, "I'm from fucking Texas. Let me tell you about it, motherfucker." I'm like, "Whoa, dude, just relax."
They
Relax.
really want to tell you about how they're from Texas and what they're eating and you know,
and how everything's bigger.
That's true.
Come on down to
That's
Buc-ee's.
true.
Everything's bigger here.
Everything's bigger here, man. I'll go out there in that farm and punch a cow in the face, bro.
To be fair, though,
I also learned a valuable lesson. I had somebody ask me, he goes, random guy, I wish I would have got his name. I was standing there pumping gas in my truck, and he recognized me. So he came over and said, "Hey," and a little bit in the conversation, he said, "Man, you've been in Texas for how long?" I said, "Well, I've been here for about a week." And he goes, "Well, where do you stand?" And I kind of stepped back a minute, and I looked at the ground, I looked up at him, well, I'm standing right here, kind of thing. And he goes, no, bro, where do you stand? And he looked at me, I looked back, and he goes, Whataburger or In-N-Out, bro? Which one are you? And so I've learned that that's like a huge deal here in Texas, and you have to choose wisely, apparently. So to not offend anyone, I'm going to keep it to myself of what I like better.
I'm in the business of offending people, so let
Same.
me tell you what. In-N-Out's okay. Whataburger fucking sucks. It's terrible. Five Guys is way better than both of those.
Yo.
I mean, it's not even close.
Yeah, Five Guys is good. I like Five Guys. In fact, I think we just Uber Eat. Is it Uber Eated?
Eat it. Eat it is definitely a word. Yeah, sure.
We Uber Eated Five Guys to the studio here today.
Nice.
Yeah,
there
so
it is,
look, I go In and Out, obviously.
I love In-N-Out.
Look, it's a Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I
that's
have
a
no
staple.
doubt that you go In and Out, Ross. I could have called.
You're the one that had
I
Five
do.
Guys ordered to your fucking studio today, homie. Let's not.
I did. Well, no. So he had Five Guys. I'm with you on the Whataburger, where I don't
see it.
I don't get the hype.
Every time I go there, it's dry and disgusting, and they don't have great menu options. The chicken that they serve there is terrible, which, I mean, it's fast food, but everything you get at In-N-Out is fresh. That's the difference.
This is going to create a shitstorm online. You know that, right?
Well, you know,
People are losing their minds right now, literally, as they're listening to this.
Dude. Because let's go, while we're on it, real quick, before we dive into today's show and the sponsors and everything, let's go your all-time.
hey, wait, I just want to put, Graham is the one that brought this shit up. It wasn't us.
I get it.
It is me. It's my fault. I did it.
That's why he's on the show. He stirs the pots. He opens up the buns and shows us the meats. If you're going fast food hamburger, Graham, gun to head, who are you taking? Death row, last meal, you're going to get executed, lethal injection, maybe electrocution, and one more, like a hanging afterwards, just in case, because you're a powerful man. What do you go as your last burger on this earth?
Between In-N-Out or Whataburger?
No,
or just
any option.
You can go across the board here.
I probably would go Five Guys, man.
Yeah.
I really like Five Guys.
I think they have the best burgers in fast food. Like
Well, they're proud of their burgers for sure. Like it's super expensive at Five Guys.
Yeah, I'll say that. Is that your call too, D'Anthony?
Yeah, for fast food that you can get anywhere.
Last meal on
globally.
Earth. Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I'll tell you what else. If you order a small fry there, you get a garbage bag full of fucking French fries.
Do you really?
Yeah, it's a massive amount of French fries.
Yeah. They give you a whole bag, like garbage bag full of fries. It's crazy.
Gun to head, last burger on Earth, I'm going Shake Shack, I think.
Shake Shack is good.
Yeah. I enjoy it. Shake Shack is the original, like the original, whatever the fuck that is on that. I go Shake Shack, and then fries-wise, I go those cheesy bacon fries with it on the side, and then I call it a life right there.
Which Shake Shack? I would get the Smoke Shack. It's the one with the chili peppers on it or whatever. The red,
that's a good one.
Red cherry
I've
peppers.
never had it.
It's real. It's great.
I've never had that.
Shake Shack is good. It's an up and comer.
Yeah.
I had it in Vegas for the first time ever. There's a bunch in New York, and I just saw it in an airport. Graham, you and I are flying all the time. I was in the the Cleveland airport. God forbid I left out Cleveland again. I was in the Cleveland airport, and they had a Shake Shack in there, and it completely changed my opinion of Cleveland and their airport. I was like, all right, maybe I'll give this a go.
Well, I mean, if you don't have to leave the airport, Cleveland's not a bad place to go. Otherwise,
it's terrible.
Yeah.
You were just in Boston, by the way. How was it, Graham?
I'll be honest with you guys. So it was my first trip to Boston.
Sure.
Never been there before. We did some filming. I don't know. We released a video, but basically we went up there to film a video response to Bernie Sanders saying that even the Boston Bombers should be allowed to vote. So we got a hold of this guy.
Did you really?
Yeah, no, he did. And so we got a hold of this guy named Mark Fuckeril was his name, and he was actually a victim and lost his leg and everything. And so we went up there and got to sit down and talk with him. And so it was really cool. But anyway, Boston, man, I was really, really, really impressed with Boston. So if anybody's listening that's from that area, good for you.
Great
guys.
city.
I mean, it was beautiful.
Yep.
It was awesome. I got to see Fenway, which has always been a dream. I've always wanted to see Fenway. I'm not a Red Sox fan,
sure,
but I appreciate the history of Fenway Park, and so I always wanted to see it. And so it was super cool. It did not disappoint, and so I loved it there.
I'm a big fan of Boston. I got to work there a couple times, and it was great. Same thing, Fenway. I enjoyed the food. I enjoyed the people, and I like the downtown where you can walk around. Feels relatively safe, and I'm a gigantic fan of Boston. Look, Cleveland, I was not a fan of when I was just there.
No,
but Boston, I love Boston. I'd go back anytime to Boston.
The only bad thing about Boston is their sports fans.
Oh, the worst.
They're the worst.
The worst.
They're not the meanest. Philly's probably the meanest.
You know what's funny? So Graham's a big sports guy too. Yeah. Graham, how do you feel about this? Because more than likely, and on our sports show, we've said this. Boston sports are going to win 3 out of the 4 major titles this year. The Bruins are probably going to win the Stanley Cup. The Red Sox won the World Series this year, and then the Patriots won the Super Bowl. And you're going to hear about it for the next 40 years, I have a feeling.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, they know what they're doing up there. That's for sure. I mean, it seems like the talent capital at this point, or the title capital of
Title
the United
Town
States here. Yeah, title capital. I like that. We should do it. We should coin that. That's a good
title
thing.
capital, title town. New England's kind of it's very vague. Did you go to Paul Revere's house at all when you were there?
No, it was one of those trips, man. It was purely a working trip that I forced a trip to Fenway on. Yeah, you know
Gotcha.
what I mean? And so I was there to work, but I told him, I said, I'm not leaving until I see Fenway Park. So.
Yeah, when I was in Philadelphia, I had to stop by with Dan to my namesake to see Betsy Ross's house.
Yeah.
I did it. Oh. I had to. It's like my 6th grade aunt, apparently. So I stopped by, paid my respects. She sewed the flag up in that bitch, and I loved every second of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I did. I went to Philly actually the same trip. I will say though I wasn't as impressed with Philly as I was Boston.
Well, here's the thing. So let me preface this by saying I've been to Philadelphia before in the past, and it used to be a shithole. They've really cleaned it up to like a decent type of New York vibe down there,
right?
Where you can tell it's on the upswing. And I get it because I understand where you're coming from. I've seen Philly at its worst, where it was just like, oh man,
It still kind of smells like pee.
yeah, of course. Same with like New Orleans,
Yeah.
where you can have your magical nights in New Orleans where you're like, oh man, this is the greatest city in the world. Then there's other times like you roll through in July and it's a hot dump on a sidewalk with a side of pee, and it's just steaming right off that sidewalk where you're like, oh god, I'm tasting it. I'm tasting another man's feces.
Well, that's
in
how
my mouth.
smell works,
Well,
I just want everyone in the audience to take a moment to realize that everything you've ever smelled, you've tasted, because that's how smell works.
yeah. Did you know that, Graham?
No,
I didn't either.
not.
I didn't either.
So
I'm really proud of the path that we've taken in the first couple minutes of this podcast. We went from Texas to burgers to Boston to why Philadelphia doesn't suck as bad as it once did. It's interesting.
And then you
That's
hop
what I
on
love
down.
about- That's what I love about y'all's show.
Yeah, you hop on down to New Orleans and you talk about another man's homeless feces. With that, we'll get into our sponsors because nobody loves us talking more about homeless people's feces than our sponsors. First and foremost, ghostbed.com/Drinkin Bros. You ever slept on a ghost bed mattress, Graham?
Actually, I will say this, not to, and the people listening at home, they're going to be like, this is the biggest load of garbage I've ever heard. I actually contacted Ghost Bed about a ghost bed because of you guys listening to it on the podcast.
The best, yeah. So, dude, we'll get you out of Ghost Bed for your new place in Dallas. We'll have them ship one out to you. They're our chief,
Hey, man.
dude. They're our chief sponsor for the entire year this year. So we're doing big things with them. They're giving 15% off permanently to military and all first responders. So if you're military
Good for them.
or first responders, boom, 15% off. With which buying a mattress, that's a big deal. They get a 36-month no interest pay as you go program. You don't even have to pay for the first month, by the way. Free, just absolutely free.
crazy.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
and they give you a
Oh, that's cool.
30-day back, guarantee. So if you don't like the mattress, boom, they'll take it back, and you don't have to pay anything. Which is weird because in the first 30 days, I mean, you could bone, I don't know how many times on that mattress. 60, 70?
6 or 7 times a day for
I don't know
30
how
days.
it's sanitary to take something back after 30 days. Even without that, just sweating
Yeah.
and all that other kind of stuff. I'm
sure they put it in an incinerator or something. I doubt they're.
Yeah, they've got to. Yeah,
Yeah.
they got to destroy it.
Especially a mattress. I mean, there's just
Yeah.
nothing but fluids on that, whether it be sweat, blood, or
Semen,
or
yeah.
semen.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much all the 3 fluids, And then if you have children, forget about it.
Oh yeah, milk.
High C
yeah.
boxes. The worst.
Oh,
Their own
yeah,
feces,
yeah,
the whole
yeah.
thing.
I'll come back to a story once you get done with your pitch.
No, go ahead. Fire away. The sponsors don't
well,
care.
I was gonna say when we moved into our house, our mattress. It's so embarrassing because our mattress looks like some kind of assassination attempt has happened, but it's because of our children. And so I had to explain to the movers, I'm like, I know this looks really, it's so bad that I have to explain to the movers, like, I promise it's not what it looks like. It's actually my children who
Yeah.
have either,
Come on.
I don't know, gotten sick or they've peed in the bed or something like that. Like, I promise it's not us, it's the kids.
You're telling me there's not one red wine stain on that bed thanks to you or your wife? Come on.
No wine, no alcohol. There's got to be something on there that's yours.
Don't
Oh,
take
yeah.
a little personal responsibility.
Take a little
Graham.
responsibility, Graham. I just went through this as well because after the hurricane, they had to come in and put new carpets and all that stuff in my house. We took the mattress up. It looked like where Bobby Kennedy was shot. Like it looked like the kitchen floor of the Renaissance Hotel. We were just like, oh man, you might as well just chalk outlined him on there.
Yeah, and put Surin in the corner and just like
let him shoot one more time.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where I apologized to the movers where I was just like, oh no, because it was my kid's bed. I was just like, oh man, he was learning to not use the bathroom all over himself, and it was just a lot of smiles and cries, like like walking into a Chinese restaurant, you tell them your name, and it's just like, oh, and you're like, but I
Didn't
gave you the
register,
reservation,
yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
register.
No.
But either way, I threw them an extra 20, and I said, I'm sorry for whatever you stuck.
What I
your
do
hand in.
is go over it with the black light and explain to them specifically in detail what each stain is.
where it came from.
Yeah. And for a guy that lives the kind of life I do, that is a long conversation.
Yeah, and if you're a guy who lives the kind of life Dan does, go to ghostbed.com/drinking bros for all your deals. Next up, and we'll save this one for last. We'll skip one. We'll go to the other one first. We'll go to buyraycon.com. The headphones you rock to.
Yeah.
Look,
great.
we reached out. Graham, do you do this for your show on Dear America? By the way, if you're not listening to Dear America podcast, Graham's got a great podcast that just started. I was on it. Always have a great time. Do you reach out to companies that you want as sponsors on your show, Graham?
The show I'm really focusing on right now, and I appreciate the pitch, by the way. Yes, go check out Dear America podcast.
Yeah.
But either way, no, we're building right now,
sure,
and we're doing, we're doing well. If I can toot our own horn, but now that we've got some momentum behind us, yes, there's definitely some companies that I would love to sponsor the show. So yeah, sometimes I do.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because we with us. We reach out to sponsors we use and we want to use.
Yeah.
So our thing was headphones. We had a problem with headphones all the time, and everybody's using the Beats by Dr. Dre.
Right.
And those things are like $350 a pop, right? So we reached out and we were like, hey, yeah, can we have a promo code on those? And they were like, no, you can't. So we slid on over to Raycon. We were like, hey, everybody keeps talking about yours. We love these. And they were like, yeah, dude, we'll give you a promo code. And I was like, dude, get out of here. So at buyraycon.com, dude, headphones are $70. Now they're $50. Buyraycon.com/drinking bros. And that'll get you, dude, $50 headphones, wireless, chargeable, put them in a box. You're good to go. They get a little tiny recharge box, which I like.
Yeah,
that's a nice thing. That's a nice thing. Our last sponsor is expressvpn.com/drinking bros as well. This is a cybersecurity company. I'm glad they're on the show today because one of our first topics is going to be about this Google outage that we had.
Well, there's two things. There's the Google outage and there's Quest Diagnostics lost 12 million records.
Correct.
They're the company that does all the drug tests for the federal government, for local governments, everybody.
Yeah, and it's almost mandatory to have one of these programs running in the back of your computer these days.
I have it on every device that I own.
Every device. Go to expressvpn.com. Protect against fraud. People trying to steal your info, all the data breaches. $7 runs in the back of everything you own: iPhones, tablets, home computers, you name it. And you get 3 free months for free when you sign up for a year. Cheap as shit, and it'll save your life. That'll lead us into our top story here, Graham. I don't know if you were affected by this yesterday, but everybody else was affected by this. YouTube was down. Google was down. Google Cloud was down.
Yeah. Snapchat.
It's the beginning of the end, guys.
Snapchat.
It's the beginning of the end.
That's what it felt like to me. And the first thing that the first thing that I thought was that it was a conspiracy theory, because Google just got hit with this antitrust suit. Did you read about that, Graham?
No, I hadn't heard. No, educate me.
Yeah, it just happened. D'Anthony, once you drop the hammer on Google.
So apparently the Federal Trade Commission was looking into Google for some of their search practices, and that's how they make most of their money, is their back-end algorithm and how it directs search stuff and how people, like every major company in America advertises on that platform. So I don't know exactly what they're being pretty cagey about what specifically they're going after, whether it's if it's antitrust, that means they're boxing somebody else out, or they've brought other companies in from mergers that's created a non-competitive environment, and that's, all that stuff's debatable. But the really bad news for Google is that there was a jurisdictional battle for this case, and the Federal Trade Commission lost and the Department of Justice won, which means the Department of Justice is, i.e. the FBI, is now in charge of this shit. So that kind of takes it from a civil issue where there would be fines levied to a criminal issue potentially, and courts might do stuff like break up parts of the company and say, hey, you can't own these guys, you have to divest from this and all this other bullshit.
Right. And the reason why this is a huge deal is Google's server for their iCloud houses a lot of things. Again, they own YouTube, they own Snapchat. All of that was down yesterday. We had trouble uploading one of our shows yesterday for the listeners for that exact reason. The other thing that I found was interesting, and I don't dabble in this until we just moved into our new office. I know you're moving into a new office with security. A lot of people are using Nest, right? Or these, these wireless devices for their air conditioners, their phones. A lot of people were locked out of their houses.
Yeah.
And they couldn't turn on the air conditioner because Google was down. Yeah, which, look, in Texas or North Carolina is an absolute nightmare in the summer.
Yeah, that's serious, man.
But the biggest conspiracy, and I want to ask you about this, Graham, is a lot of people are asking, did the government test an internet kill switch? And if you believe in conspiracies like that, when things happen like this.
I think that it is very ignorant for people to not think that the government would have something like that in place.
Same.
I agree. It's almost like
it's
like a digital nuclear weapon. Like, you don't want to use it, but if it needs to happen, then you have to fucking cut that switch on. Plus, there's all sorts. I mean, the intelligence communities over the years have done some pretty weird shit. You know what I mean? And
I'm not a conspiracy kind of guy, but I am our freedoms are established for a reason kind of guy, and I am if you think that forever that there may come a time that the government doesn't have your best interest in mind anymore, then you're not paying attention to history and the thousands of years that we have of it. And so yeah, sure, of course, I think that it's possible. Am I saying that's what it was? No. But am I saying that that's possible? Yeah, of course.
It also could have been possible. Google saying, we control everything, so you might want to calm the fuck down with this lawsuit, homie.
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big dick energy play right there. Like, you're going to sue me? Click. Now you can't get into your own house. You know what I mean?
Because, cloud services, you've got Salesforce, you've got Google, Amazon's got a big cloud service. You nuke any one of those three, there's a million businesses tied to those. You can bring down a lot of things. I mean, dude, if you can't use the air conditioner in your house because Google is down, that's kind of just tapping on your shoulder saying, hey, man, you should probably pump the brakes on that lawsuit, okay? Because we could really shut down everything.
Well, that's basically what Stuxnet was. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. So the NSA allegedly, although I don't think they ever actually claimed responsibility, but they sent an operative into some nuclear reactors in Iran and put this piece of code called Stuxnet on them.
Yep.
And it caused overloads of systems for their cloud software internally. Like, it was all offline, but internally it was online. So it's like an ad hoc network, basically. So they put this code into there, and it's fucking caused a reactor meltdown. That's how powerful these machines are now.
And there was a rumor that they did it in North Korea a while back as well for one of their nuke sites.
I'm sure they did, yeah, but North Korea...
Oh, I have no problems believing that.
Yeah. North Korea wouldn't report it, though. They would never report... They don't appeal to anybody's sense of common sense or justice or anything. They just say crazy shit all the time. So they... Like, Iran was like, hey, quit fucking with our shit. Like, they brought it to the UN. It's like, hey, you can't do this. If it happened in North Korea, they wouldn't say shit because they don't want anybody knowing what they're up to up there.
No, I understand that, but as far as on our own home soil, I went through something at the Atlanta airport that I am positive was a test. I don't know if you remember that power outage that happens. Jesse, what year was that? Last year or 2 years ago? Last year? Yeah, it was last year. So last year, all of the electricity went out in the Atlanta airport. It was almost at noon on the dot. There was 80,000 people in the world's largest airport. And
yeah.
So I was there, and my wife and I had just flown in, and literally we step off the plane, and then so I mean I'm just walking right off the door of the plane, and everything went out, and I was like, no bigs, right? People are pretty calm for the most part. Most of the restaurants were serving. We had some liquor. We enjoyed ourselves. And then 4 hours later kicks in, and you're like, all right, we've got a problem here. All they were saying was that there was a power outage. And then suddenly they had to evacuate the entire airport and said, we're not going to be able to fix this grid until the morning. Everybody's going to have to leave the airport and go to the tarmac, which still didn't make sense to me. The world's largest airport was controlled by one power grid. Like, one thing went out, and they said it was a cable company that wasn't working. However, on Reddit, they said that one plane was able, and they grounded all the aircrafts across the board, but they said that one plane was able to take off, just one, and it was going and they gassed up and then they left, and it was going from the United States to Israel, and then it had weapons on it. Why or what that was, I don't know. And if you're trying to test out how people would respond, I will say this, for the most part, relatively, except for some employees that worked for the MARTA station there who were assholes. All of the humans of 80,000 people, Americans who were typically, you'd figured would just burn the place to the ground. Everybody helped each other. Everybody was pleasant for the most part. There wasn't a lot of problems except for, you have no electricity, so you have no phone. You have no computer. You don't have a way to get a hold of anybody. And therefore, trying to get an Uber, you can't. Rental cars were sold out across the board. And then you had to take this train uptown and trying to get to wherever you were going, and then hotels were sold out. But for the most part, everybody handled that pretty well. And I thought, to me, it felt like a gigantic test to see if you could shut down the nation's largest airport and how Americans would respond. And I'm with you, Graham. I think this happens a lot with the government, but they choose when and when not to do this. Like yesterday, all this went down was on a Sunday. Most people are at home. You're not out on the roads. You don't need GPS devices and all that other stuff. Like if you were going to test it out, Sunday's the perfect time to test it out. Same as if you're dropping a story, you want to drop it late on a Friday night because nobody's going to give a shit about it on the weekend, right?
Right. Yeah, it makes sense.
So
I find myself envisioning, that episode of The Office where Dwight decides he's going to test everybody's fire evacuation thing. That's what I see. It's like big government has lit a trash can on fire in the back room, and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's red cell planning. That happens a lot. Like there's every government agency of any kind that's associated with the security of the country or the security of any part of the country does red cell testing, which is like you get some of your better minds in a room and try to figure out ways to break your system, right? I mean, it's important to do that. Yep. And then sometimes they actually carry out mock attacks, not actual. They don't like walk in with an S vest on and clack off or anything, but like they'll try to get certain types of materials through security and all kinds of bullshit like that all the time. That definitely happens. I mean, we employ. There's actually an entire. There's something called a certified ethical hacker (CEH). It's a certification you can get, and it's basically a white hat hacker, and you're certified in being someone who is a hacker, but you do it for good reason. The government employs a bajillion of these people, not just not just for like external cybersecurity, but also for testing internal systems and stuff.
Why haven't you been picked off, Dan? That's what I don't understand.
Picked off? Like you mean like murdered?
No, like hired. Hired in one of these positions to do. Like I could see you doing some fucked up shit just to do it.
I wouldn't work for the government again, dude.
Really? Yeah. Like you're all done with that for good. What about you, Graham? Would you ever work for the government if they asked you to?
Maybe local government.
I really, really, really like what I do now. I don't know how else to say that. Look, man, I'm one of those guys. I loved serving in the military. I've never defined myself by that. And Dan, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Like there's those guys that veteran is just what they cling to all the time, et cetera, et cetera. I am prideful of my military service. I was nothing special. I mean, you got guys like Matt and Evan and Dan Crenshaw and Dakota Meyer, all these amazing guys and that did these amazing, so much more than me. I'm proud of it. I don't miss it. And I love what I'm doing now. So no, probably not.
What about serving in public office? Because I could actually see you running a really successful campaign and winning your district.
You're trying to get me on a tangent, Ross. Is what you're trying to get.
I'm just saying. Look, you've got a lot of huge guests coming up on your show. You brought up Mr. Crenshaw. He's going to be on your show.
Dan's turned into a pretty good friend. It's been really cool to see someone of his background, and he's a solid dude too, man. So, and this is not to kiss up to Dan Crenshaw. I did call him a majestic freedom pirate in a video and lived. So I feel like we're on pretty good terms. But anyway, no, I'll say this: I had a speaking event down in Houston. What's today? Monday? 2 days ago. I'm speaking again this weekend at the Turning Point Leadership Conference here in Dallas. I will say that there's definitely starting to be some people whispering things, people
Yes.
potentially wanting me to maybe think about it. And Texas makes a lot of sense. It was not intentional, but Texas is our biggest demographic of support for the shows and what we do. So, I mean, I guess if you were plotting out a potential Graham Allen run in something, moving to Texas would have been a very strategic move for something like that. I don't know. I think anyone who wants it is not the right person for it. I think people who are called into it or pushed into it through need, I think, I much like Donald Trump, I think that those are really the guys or gals that we need in office, are the ones that don't want it, like they don't seek it out. Ooh, I'm going to be a congressman one day, or ooh, I'm going to be a senator one day. I think it's the men and women who go, you know what, man, that's a crap job and everyone hates you all the time. But by God, I think maybe I could make a difference. I think those are the people we need. I'm not saying I'm that person. I'm saying I don't know, but I'm saying never say never.
So the door's open.
I think you should run for sheriff.
The door is cracked. The door is cracked. I really enjoy what I do right now, because even in office, there are just certain things that you can't say. I mean, even Dan, he's such an awesome dude, but there's just, what I mean? Like, there's just certain things that you can't say and do. I can say and do whatever I want right now in my current line of work and what I do. And so I'm not ready to give that up yet. But no, I'll never say never.
Well, look, you look at Donald Trump, right? Who next to Harambe is our Lord and Savior. Dan loves it when I say that. But you look at Donald Trump; he says whatever he wants. Still, today he called who was it, Mayor Khan, a stone cold loser on Twitter, which is awesome.
Sadiq Khan is the mayor of London, right?
Yeah,
and no one gives a fuck about this guy. But his city is.
How did he win? Huge Muslim population
yes.
There is?
Yes.
Okay.
Plus a lot of white guilt, I imagine. I mean, he's a relatively smart guy. Smart people could be wrong about political shit, especially because it's like the silver spoon shit and all this other, just all the stuff that goes into sociology, right? But this guy is just like going off the deep end with some of the stuff he's saying. So he said Donald Trump is one of the most egregious examples of a glowing global threat. Like, what the fuck does that mean? Really?
Yeah.
Like, look, I disagree with a lot of shit that Trump does and says, and I agree with a lot of it as well. But he's not a fucking global threat. That's that kind of hyperbole coming from a leader of a major city in this world is bad for everyone.
Yeah, it's terrible for everyone. And Graham, this is the guy who London prided itself. They were pridden, maybe.
Yes.
They were pridden on saying, we don't have any guns, we don't have murders like America, blah, blah, blah. Now their crime rate is higher, the city, than anywhere in the world, right? It's
Captain Stabby's over there now.
Yeah,
they're starting to pass laws about knives now.
It's knives, yes. You're not allowed to carry a knife on you in public. Yeah. And there's a rapper who's currently in jail who had a knife on him because he's not allowed to carry anything else. What's your stance on that, Graham?
I think that... Again, we have thousands of years of history that for some reason people just seem to want to ignore all the time and think that we are immune to, previous mistakes in history. I think any time that you live underneath any type of leadership or government, not democracy, but, dictatorship or socialism, et cetera, and they start enforcing all these things to disarm or be against the arming of citizens, etc. It is a direct reflection of the areas and just the deterioration of those areas. I mean, they go hand in hand. I was listening to Charlie Kirk talk the other day, and within our country, you look at the highest crime-rated areas that we have within our country, and you look at their gun laws. Most of them are very, 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 very strict gun laws areas, but yet they're the highest crime-ridden areas. You look at those areas that are the highest in crime, the lowest in education, and you look at the counties in that. I think America has just under 4,000 counties, and 2 of those counties amount for all of those statistics in the highest crime rate, lowest education, et cetera, et cetera. Look at the party affiliation that are the leadership in those counties and things. And so I don't know. I love what Donald Trump does. Back to your original point, Ross, of how Donald Trump says whatever he wants, however he wants to say it. He has definitely rocked the boat on calling people out for what they are. If they do a terrible job, by God, Donald Trump is going to tell you that they're doing a terrible job. If they suck, Donald Trump will tell you that they suck. If he, whether or not called the Duchess of, what do they call the prince's wife over in the UK? The Duchess of, what's it called?
Yeah, Yorkshire. It depends on what's suffix you're from.
Well, either way, she's a duchess, and now everybody's up in arms because he may or may not have said that she was nasty.
Meghan Markle,
big whoop. Yeah, there it is. There it is. So Trump has definitely changed it. I think that, but I think there's a lot of merit in when people live in areas where the government is very anti them being free and having freedoms like carrying knives or guns or anything like that. They all are very similar in a lot of ways, and I think that's very telling.
Yeah, and back to your point about some of these the cities or the counties, the two that account for the most violence. I'm assuming one of them is Chicago, and this new story just broke right now. 52 shot this weekend, 10 fatally for the most violent weekend in Chicago this year, and that's a Democratic. That's another one that's heavy Dems.
It is, but I mean, look, there's a couple of things there. First of all, cities where there are strict gun laws, that's usually reactionary because there was a crime problem before. I don't know if there's necessarily a correlation between those two, but the point, and Graham alluded to this, is that instead of, like, we've established, FBI statistics over the last 15 years have established there is no correlation between the level of punishment you dole out and reducing crime. That is not, even the death penalty doesn't stop murders. It just doesn't. So instead of spending money on stupid bullshit and outlawing guns in a city where somebody can just drive 20 miles east and buy a gun and come right the fuck back, because that's stupid, right? That's real dumb. That's what Chicago does. Real dumb. Instead of doing that, maybe get your alderman in line, stop all the corruption. 3 out of the last 5 governors of Illinois have spent time in prison within the last 10 years.
Blogovich.
Yep. It's fucking ridiculous, dude. So get your head out of your ass. Like, a good law is clear, concise, and enforceable. Those 3 things. Like, it's there's brevity. It's not all crazy. There's not loopholes. It's very clear, directly states what it is, and then it's enforceable. Like a law like that, you can't buy a handgun in Chicago. That's not an enforceable law because I can just drive 20 miles east and subvert it.
Sure.
It's fucking stupid. So instead of doing all these major campaigns and wasting all this money in the legislature, maybe spend some money on some education at some point.
Yeah, but education is the first thing to be cut in all of these budgets. Where do you think the gun laws are headed, Graham?
Well, again, back up. I think that the gun law debate and gun control debate is going to be one of the major debates. And Ross, me and you talked about this a couple weeks ago, and it's definitely has not slowed down. I told you that abortion was going to be a major talking point in 2020, man, and just look. Every single week, it is like people are digging their heels in the sand more and more and more every single week. And so I think gun laws, I think immigration, and I think abortion, pro-life versus pro-choice, are going to be 3 of the biggest talking points in the 2020 election. To be politically honest, I want to say for the viewers listening, media matters, especially you, if you're listening to me, because you love to talk bad about me. Graham Allen hates black people and things like that. But either way, the areas that have some of the highest crime rates and things like that, I mean, there of course are other issues than just, gun violence and things like that. But I will allude to my previous point that a lot of the Democratic leadership goes to that. You look at these areas that have strict gun laws, and then you wonder why the crime rate is so high. It's because we're donating money and continuing to put money into things that aren't working. And what I mean by that is you look at some of the 2 counties that I'm talking about. Another high county is in Baltimore. Baltimore, Maryland is terrible. And I think it's their high schools, There are several high schools in Baltimore where 90% of the African American community can't read at level. But yet we still pump
that's just a
millions
failure.
of dollars a year into this, and they're not doing their jobs.
That is an
any
abject
other-
failure of government right there.
Exactly. And so, and so we are failing our societies in continuing to, I mean, these teachers should not have jobs. They should be fired. And we wonder why these young men and young women turn to violence and crime and things like that. Of course they're going to. What else are they going to do? They can't read the way that they're supposed to. You know what I mean? And so I think that, again, pulling it back full circle, I think gun rights, I think abortion, I think immigration, and probably social economic fundings of like education and things like that are going to be our biggest stable points going into 2020.
Yeah, I do too. And, to Dan and I were talking about this earlier, to a brief point right before we got on the show. I mean, literally right before we went on about what's going to happen here. Trump doesn't really have to do anything.
No, Trump is absolutely loving all this impeachment talk. I guarantee you, if I'm him, this is fucking the best possible scenario because it's far easier to mobilize people in your base to defend something that they have than it is to mobilize them to take something new. Think about our response in Afghanistan versus our response in Iraq and how those were perceived publicly. Afghanistan attacked us, we defended ourselves. I mean, that's not exactly how it went down, but Iraq didn't do shit.
Right.
And then we just fucking invaded that country, right? So think about it from Trump's point of view. All of his base, especially the young people, and that's what matters because they're the firebrand of the campaigns. They're getting more and more irritated about being called deplorable because they have a different point of view than you. That's fucking stupid. Hillary Clinton's an idiot. Everybody knows that. And I got to tell you, I'm kind of with. It's a very millennial attitude that the kids on the left are taking now. And it's that, what have you done for me lately? Like they're asking, that's why they like Bernie Sanders, because he's offering them shit. Right?
Free shit that he can't pay for.
Of course. I mean, I'm not saying it's right. What I'm saying is that's how you appeal to people like that. And the left doesn't really have anything legitimate to offer. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I think it is a good mindset for young people. We get into these periods where we support the government tacitly, but I feel like we should be demanding things of the government, not free shit, right? Obviously not that, but we are the constituency. Like they work for us. We don't work for them. It's not my job to make sure some politician gets elected. It's not my job to make sure they're successful. It's their job to make sure that we're defended and that business is going well and that healthcare and all this other education and all this shit is taken care of.
Yeah, but that seems to always fall by the wayside because, you're involved in some political roil or another, right? What are the chances you think that the Dems will actually try to impeach Trump, Graham?
Well, I mean, I think that they have been trying and they will continue to try. But somebody brought it up, and don't make me, I hate quoting people and I can't remember who it was that said it, but somebody brought it up the best thing. Yeah, we're kind of looking at an Obama in 12 situation with Trump, where instead of focusing on what the Dems are actually going to do to have a candidate actually possibly beat Trump, which I don't think there's anyone that has a shot. They've spent so much time trying. They were writing everything on the Mueller report, and it did not pan out the way they wanted to. Well, they did the same thing with Obama back in 12 with Obamacare.
Yep. We just talked about this last week. This exact conversation.
It's funny you brought that up. We were talking about this too. Continue, Graham.
Yeah. Well, they tried to. I think it was like 46 or 47 times they tried to overturn Obamacare, and then when it came time for the actual election, they were like, well, what are we going to do to actually beat this guy? Well, it's the same thing with Trump, except Trump is by far a much better president than Obama was. They really have nothing. They formulated no real plan. They have almost 30 potential candidates right now that they've got to sort through, where your really only front runners are Biden and Sanders. And neither one of them can beat Trump. The economy is fantastic. lowest unemployment rate for Black, Hispanic, and Asian community in the past 50 years. You had a 3.2 GDP growth in Q4, which is unheard of. I mean, the economy is booming. Trump, even Trevor Noah went on Jimmy Kimmel, and I don't agree with Trevor Noah on anything, but even he said, and it had to just burn him up inside. He said, the thing that worries me the most about 2020 is the fact of, agree with it or not, Trump has done every single thing that he said he was going to do. And what do the Democrats really have to beat Trump other than the fact that they don't like him?
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. I think that's the big debate amongst the Democrats now with this impeachment talk. Is this enough? Because we don't think that I don't think that genuinely, like Pelosi and those guys behind the scenes have sat down and said, I don't think there's a candidate that can beat him. So are we down to that? Are we down to impeachment? Which way are we going to go? And it's a 50-50 coin toss at this point.
Pelosi doesn't want to impeach.
No.
She's come out multiple times. She doesn't want to do it.
She doesn't. But everybody, her constituents, which is my favorite word, by the way.
Yes, it is.
Her constituents and the people, that have been voted in from the radical left, like AOCs and those guys or whatever, who want the impeachment.
Yeah, the mean girls of Congress,
yeah.
Omar, Tlaib, and AOC. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
Exactly.
I mean, they're wasting. I mean, we literally talked about this last week.
Yeah.
The same thing with Obamacare. The right wasted all of its political capital and campaign funding trying to go after that bullshit, and nobody was on board with it.
But eventually they're going to have to deal with a divided party and figure it out, a hard yes or a hard no.
Well, here's what I want to ask you about a divided party. Is there any difference right now politically on the left, because it's bifurcated between old school Democrats and these new millennial progressive kids? Mm-hmm. Is there any difference in the landscape right now than there was back in 2016, aside from there's been a Republican president who's done everything he said he was going to do? You know what I mean?
No, it's almost identical on the other side.
The divide over there is it, and like I'm a pretty moderate dude, so I talk to people from both sides. I don't see a difference between now and then, and they didn't. Like, everybody thought they were going to win then, and they got fucking spanked. And everybody thinks they're going to lose now. How bad is it going to be this time? I think it might be like a 5-6 point victory this time.
Yeah,
like,
I've publicly said this. I said 53-47 is my prediction for 2020, and that's a way too early prediction. But you're exactly right. I think we're seeing exactly what we saw in 2016 now, where the Republicans had 80 candidates. Everybody was fighting for stage space. They tore each other's faces off.
There was some
it was
great
down to
memes,
a few.
though. Remember Herman Cain? and that campaign video he made where he's smoking and he turns slowly into the camera and just nods like a fucking creep. That's one of the best things. And then Mike Tyson redid it.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that's going to happen now to the Dems starting here in 20 days?
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught Elizabeth Warren on the Breakfast Club, Graham, but that was something magical.
Say that again. No, I didn't.
So Elizabeth Warren goes on the most popular black radio show right now is the Breakfast Club.
Oh yeah, the Charlemagne.
Charlemagne the God.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm there.
So she went on to try to appeal to the black voters, which was a mistake. Charlemagne the God gives zero fucks.
It's such a natural thing for
he
her.
immediately said that she's the new Rachel Dolezal, basically, who is the one, for those of you who don't know, who's the white woman who pretended to be black and was an NAACP president of Washington State.
Yeah. I mean, he went after Elizabeth Warren hard, and he said one of his questions was, well, when did you find out that you weren't Native American? And she was stunned, She was like,
that's what my family had told me. I'm like, yeah, but you put it on some like college shit and maybe check that. I guess when she went to college back in the 1930s, there was no 23andMe.
Well, there wasn't cars, and she wasn't allowed to vote back then. But things have changed. But looking at it now, so you take that as a very small example of what happened last week, right? There's going to be 1 million of those coming up. And, the thing with somebody jumped on stage, what was it, last night, grabbed the mic out of Kamala Harris's hand. They don't know who or why, but you're going to be filled with those moments over and over and over again. And I think the difference from 2016 is now that that politics is ramped up on all social media platforms, these little tiny moments like this will now be exploited and go even more viral than they did 3 years ago. just because
it's going to be a firestorm.
Oh, everybody's looking for a news story, and everybody's
Plus
looking to
meme
blow
culture.
things out. Oh yeah,
Like,
meme culture's huge.
Meme culture just in the last couple of years, like it's you something happens and then there's memes about it the next 2 days, and then there's like second and third tier level memes that come out after that. It's like everything happens so fast now. Although the good news is that you know, the news cycle turns over faster now too than it did before.
True.
So I guess, you know, in a way there's a little bit of buffer there. You can do I think you can take more risks now than before, because what's the worst thing that can happen? You're on a meme for 2 or 3 days and then it's over. And you just you do something else.
Yeah,
Like, somebody else gets attacked after you.
Yeah, exactly. You're always one meme away from being like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Who's gonna have the hold my beer moment?
Yeah.
We're good.
And if you lean into it like Crenshaw did with the Saturday Night Live thing, even though even though he didn't do anything wrong to get that treatment, even if he had done something stupid and they had made fun of him and he had gone on the show later and made fun of himself and them and everything like that, that would have been a huge win for anybody. So I mean, there's good parts to it too.
100%. And I look at the Dan Crenshaw thing. To me, politically, that was one of the best moments we've had in the last couple of years when he went on SNL and did that thing.
Yeah.
For both parties, by the way.
Yeah.
Not just.
Well, he just did The View as well, and The View has been a killer of conservative political figures, conservative influencers, conservative talk show people. The View has murdered people, and Dan Crenshaw, man, he went on there, and I didn't hear one negative thing about Dan Crenshaw's time on The View, which I think just says a lot about him, man. 2024, Ross, I told you this. I'm not worried about 2020. I think Trump's got it in the bag. I'm worried about 2024, and I think a Haley Crenshaw ticket in 2024 would be huge.
Massive. And, you know, it's funny you say that because Nikki Haley just came out and she's gonna be campaigning, in 2020 for Trump. So she's going to pop back out again. And, I think it sets the stage for her politically in 2024, either to be the president or a VP. And if Crenshaw ran, that would be fantastic. He's one of those guys, and you know, going back to your point about The View, he's one of those guys who just commands respect, and I think everyone's afraid to say something to him.
Yeah, he gets to play the V card a lot, which is good. By V card, I mean veteran card, and he doesn't use it like a dick. He doesn't say, I'm a veteran, you can't disagree with me. He's open to disagreement and debate and stuff, but what he does use it is to deflate all the harsh language that's become part of the American landscape politically, like deplorables, for example.
Sure.
Or fucking calling anybody that's a Democratic communist or whatever the fuck. Like he immediately removes that from the conversation because no one is going to say it to him. And I think that's really important because the way we talk about things matters. And if you're couching your entire statement in a belief that the other side is morally objectionable, that's problematic. It really is. And it fucking immediately takes all the good stuff out of a debate and just makes it, animosity. And you never get shit done like that. You can't.
No, and I don't know who's going to debate him if he were to run in 2024 and try to tear him down the way these other guys are. On a side note, Dan, I'd like to say this. I did watch the AOC doc on Netflix that they paid they paid $10 million for. And I'll tell you why. I'm not one of those people who's trying to shut out, the other political party that I'm against or are not affiliated with, right? I will always be open to hearing everybody's thoughts and opinions and all that stuff. And I was genuinely curious to see how she made it, what her life was like, and what the hype was all about. You know, the weirdest thing that'll really get you, Graham, is that her boyfriend actually looks like Dan.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's good news for me because I'm into crazy chicks.
Red hair, red beard.
I haven't paid much attention
white.
to her boyfriend.
I don't have red hair, but
you used to at some point in your life.
No.
Come on.
Hair doesn't.
Here's something I'll say about AOC. I'm sorry, Dan.
No, go ahead.
No, it's fine.
I will say that someone is coaching her. I will say that. She has definitely here lately. She has either somebody is typing her tweets out for her, someone is coaching her because she is definitely coming out far more just not absolutely just moronic anymore. And now you've got this Ted Cruz thing. Have you guys seen this where her and Ted Cruz
perfect segue
are going back and forth on co-signing a bill together? And I was in Houston just on Saturday in a speech, and they asked me, what do you think of that? And I said, well, I actually am completely okay with it as long as the bill is sound, because that's actually what's supposed to happen. You know what I mean? I mean, that's actually the whole point. And so I truly believe it. People keep saying that they think AOC is going to die out. I disagree. I think she's extremely dangerous as far as the conservative value system goes, just because, the younger generations love her. She's being coached. And, I mean, 5, 6 years from now, you never know.
You really don't. And that's the thing is, like, it's not necessarily a bad thing about having someone else run your Twitter account, Donald Trump. Because I love Trump. The only thing I don't like about him, one of the things I don't like about him is the tweets. Whenever you're that fast to putting out a message to the world that can affect the stock market or trade or tariffs or whatever it is, man, it might be best for every political candidate on both sides to have somebody else running your Twitter account, because you're one fat thumb away from just sending the wrong thing, or like Elon Musk. What was he on acid that night when he sent that tweet of how Tesla was going private, and now he's that caused the market to go through the roof or the stock for Tesla, and now he's being sued for that by the SEC.
Anyone that can imitate Trump's voice on Twitter, like his narrative, that should be $1 million a year salary job, because he has such a unique way of speaking.
I feel like if we could bring Don Rickles back from the dead, he could probably handle it. Right?
Don Rickles would be great.
Some
for
insult
Trump.
comedian, because that's all he does is talk shit to people. It's super funny. What did he say about? He said about De Blasio, our very dumb and incompetent mayor of New York City. He also said he was the worst mayor in New York City history, which is probably not true, but it's funny.
You never know. Trump's got a lot of real estate there, so if there's anybody who would know if the mayor sucked, it's probably Trump.
Called Sadiq Khan a quote-unquote stone cold loser.
Yeah.
End quote, which I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say those words in that order before, but
stone cold loser. You're starting to get into some old school Charlie Sheen shit now, you know? And by the way, he was having people writing tweets for him. I was one of those people.
Good.
Yeah, we were writing quotes for him and T-shirts and all that stuff during that whole blow up. So it's possible. It's possible AOC's being coached and she's got a writer for all this stuff. I know this on that doc, her boyfriend, who looks a lot like a young Dan Holloway, if he smoked more weed, very tech savvy. So that guy was running the back end of her campaign and knew the ins and outs of the computer world and the algorithms and all of that stuff. And I think you're right, Graham, where I don't think she's going away. I really don't. I think she's here to stay.
No, I don't either.
And, I don't know if in 2024 she'll be old enough to run, but she might be very close, like right on the cusp of it, I would say.
Right now?
I think. And what do you have to be 35, I think, to run for president. So
yeah, she'll be there by 24.
Yeah, so
I think she'll be right there. But I mean, think of the narrative, man. Think of the narrative. Former bartender turned congresswoman, then becomes first female, also youngest president ever.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about it. I mean, think about that narrative.
And right now, look, Buttigieg
never.
is setting the stage for her then, because he's, 37 years old? And he's running now. She's going to have 6 more years to gain popularity and everything else. And look, I'm with you. I don't rule it out. The guy that could beat her is a man named Dan Crenshaw. I think Crenshaw would mop the floors, but let's hope.
We'll see. I don't think AOC is going anywhere.
Kennedy the youngest?
How old was Kennedy?
42. I think.
Yeah, 42.
I think he was 40s.
Yeah,
early
42, I believe.
42,
and then
43, something
Clinton
like that.
was... Obama was pretty young, too, at the time, wasn't he? He was right in there. But, I think Kennedy was the youngest.
Yeah, you don't realize how old Trump actually is.
No.
He's like 72, 73
Which is
years
funny,
old, man. Like
because standing next to Pence, they look the same age, but Pence is 59.
I know. It's weird, right?
Pence has looked like he's 1,000 years old for 1,000 years now.
We've all got that friend who's
Yeah.
always looked way older than their actual age. And you're like, man, how old are you? Yeah, Pence does look like somebody's great-grandfather. And Trump, slicking his hair back, getting off the jets with a new fresh do to meet the queen. He looks great.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about his age. Nobody ever talks about his age. Whereas Biden, they're hiding Biden somewhere. And I heard they're actually wrapping him up like a mummy at the end of
may have
each
just
and every
come
day.
up with a new moniker, Hiding Biden.
Hiding Biden,
Let's
dude.
start that. Hey, you guys out there in DB land, make us some nice little graphics for Biden's campaign, Hiding Biden 2020.
Yeah, because if you notice, he has not been making a lot of public appearances, and although he is the front runner, Graham. Hiding Biden.
Hiding Biden.
Man, you're not going to stop that guy, I don't think. Stop him from hiding, keeping him wrapped up. Now's the point in the show where we get to the Drinkin' Bro of the Week. You ready, D'Anthony? Who you got? You got a special one this week.
Yeah, this one is actually very near and dear to my heart because I like fucked up shit. So there's a woman in Drinkin' Bro's main group her name is Ashley Little Bear -Weber.
She Native American?
I don't know.
You don't know where the Little Bear's from?
Didn't look into it that far. But here's what she did. This actually just happened on Monday. She made a post on Monday. So what she did was she gave her husband a blowjob in the Target dressing room. Target, as in the store. Target,
Sure.
Right?
Do we know which state?
I
Which
don't.
city that Target was in?
don't.
Because I want to stay away from it.
No, I'm going there.
Okay, yeah.
I'm going to take some crime scene photos there. But
Don't
anyways,
want to have my kids trying bathing suits in there. Go ahead.
So she had him her husband, take a picture
Yep.
of that, and she had that picture made into an iPhone case and gave it to him for his birthday today.
I saw that post.
Yes.
Happy birthday. What's his name? What's
what?
the lucky fella's
I
name?
don't know, but I bet.
Yeah, look, if you're getting blown in a Target, your wife takes a picture of it and then makes it into a phone case for an iPhone. Because let's face it, if you got one of the 7 Pluses, that's a big case. That's an expensive purchase, but it's
A 7 Plus.
It's
What
that's
year
a
do you
nice
think
thing.
it is?
Where are we at here? We're on the 10s, I guess. Not a lot of people have them. Not a lot of people have the 10s yet.
Everyone has that phone.
I think a lot of people stopped at 7 Plus where they were like, look, the screen's big enough. What are we really doing here anymore? The only reason I bought the new phone, I'm dead serious, because it's not better than the 7 Plus, was because of the storage, and that's it. Otherwise, I'd rock that 7 Plus for the next 15 years and be fine with my life.
Well,
So, to Ashley Little Bear, cheers. Cheers.
Indeed.
Yeah.
her husband's
Cheers,
name is
yeah.
Steve Weber. Steve Weber.
Steve Weber, you got a hot one on your hands.
And it looks like they live in Ohio somewhere.
Good for them.
Or maybe Texas. I don't know.
Either one. They look like a happy couple. She looks young and full of life, very vibrant, stretched esophagus. Proud of her and everything she does. Little Bear, shout out to you. And if she is Native American, tell her to reach out to Elizabeth Warren. Maybe they can have a powwow.
Yeah, big time.
Man, I'm fuegs with the Indian jokes today.
You are, yes.
Graham Allen, thank you for joining us from Texas, my man. We look forward to having you on many, many times, man. You're one of our faves. You're one of the audience faves. Tell everybody where they can find you on social media.
Man, I appreciate you guys having me. It's always a fun time. You can find me anywhere, just Graham Allen. But if you're listening, if I can plug my new podcast, the Dear America Podcast, check us out wherever you listen to your podcast.
Yes, sir. One of the top-ranked political shows on all of iTunes podcasts. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thanks, buddy.
Hell yeah. I love being on the show. And your wife is one of the co-hosts, which is obviously, my jam with Ross Patterson Revolution. So that's fun, man.
She's the real fan favorite at the end.
I know,
of the
same
day.
on mine too. Everybody's like, look, it's fine if you died. Can we just save Jables? Can we save the Jabes?
She is funnier than you are.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but she's hotter than me.
I wouldn't go that far.
Graham, we love you, buddy. Thanks for being here. For Graham Allen.
Hey, thanks,
For
guys.
Graham Allen, D'Anthony Holloway, I'm Ross Patterson. This is the Drinkin' Bros. Good night, everyone.